Fantastic.
It was wonderful.
Very exciting.
Never really been tested before.
For park managers, for rangers, for policymakers.
I think together we have such a wonderful team.
If we get this off the ground, it definitely will, it has the potential to become a real game changer. It's first, yes, how's it going? 6 months after already. It's a very exciting journey.
And we already achieved a lot. We have already a lot of deliverables and milestones that were completed, all in time and with high quality.
That means that for the first 6 months we had a lot of setting up to do, establishing the baseline on how we're going to work, what we're going to be working on. We are in a good shape to really start the data collection for the monitoring and feeding of the digital twin development.
The project is going really fine and we have another 2.5 years to complete everything we want to do.
We are now in a moment that the ideas are really kind of ending up in very concrete plans. So we know now what we want to build and we know whom we are building it for, and those are the first steps. It will transform in the next 2 years a little bit, of course, but I think it's pretty clear now which problems we are going to address and how we are going to address them. And we are looking forward to see it operational, of course, in the next few months already.
With the field partners we get a lot of information because all field partners were conducting some interviews to the relevant stakeholders that we think about it in Nature First for gathering all kind of information, mostly about problems regarding conservation or also conservation objectives to try to define better our action plan to work with our challenges in this project and try to solve it during these 3 years of the project.
First, we managed to translate into Ukrainian and slightly modify the questionnaire. It was prepared for main stakeholders in the region to investigate their vision, current state and problems with large carnivores in the region, and also human-wildlife conflicts and monitoring approaches and different other things. It is activity. I have to mention that this activity within project work package number 3. So we covered the main players, the main stakeholders in the Maramures region in the Ukrainian side, and interviewed 3 stakeholders. It's our NGO, actually, the representative of NGO Roman Sherepanin, and local authorities from Rakiv City Council. It's situated on the border with Romania, exactly in the center of Maramures region, and big protected area, also one of the main, the biggest protected area in the region, Verkhovinsky National Nature Park. All results were sent to work package leader, to Boris for the analysis, but in general I would say that the common issue in human-wildlife conflict, the common issue is human-wildlife conflict. It is in the region also lack of knowledge about the large carnivores and its habitats. So that's what one of highlight problems in that region. The second result is our training on CLUE application. So it was conducted online. We were trained to work with application in order to be able to conduct the same training for our stakeholders, for protected area staff, how to use application and for monitoring within their territories. Next step we did, it was translation of all parts of in the application interface, like commands, tools, requests, and other things, descriptions, and so actually now we are waiting for updated version of this application with Ukrainian interface to be able to start preparation for trainings with our stakeholders, local authorities who will use this application for monitoring. Actually, I have to say that we already agreed with 3 of them cooperate on using this application. So it is 2 protected areas in the region and 1 forestry units. So all of them are situated within study area, and they also are quite play important role for species and habitats management, for conservation, for monitoring. And we also almost finalized the process of smartphone purchasing. So now we will have smartphones, we will distribute them together with this application, and we have to prepare the training packages in Ukrainian, and then we will do it. For that stakeholders, for that authorities, we will train them how to use this.
We made these interviews for the stakeholders. We make the training for use CLUI, the application and the other tools. So maybe this were the two more important things that we achieve for our perspective as a field site.
We engaged the stakeholder firstly. We have two ministries and two agency, which is the one step below the ministry. So we have probably about 25 stakeholders for now. We started to talk with them about the project, about the aims of the project.
We try until now to get in contact with some of the stakeholders, namely with the Romanian police and border police, the one that are making the controls in the Danube Delta area. And we applied the project questionnaires with them, discussing about what they would need, about the situation right now in the area. And we are trying to see how we can use CLUI in the field with our fishermen communities that are involved in this project or in other projects.
We collected a lot of answers for all of these interviews. There was a huge amount of information that we tried to organize it better as possible. So now we created this matrix of tangible methods and problems regarding this project, and it's very interesting. We did this public, so you can access it publicly, and I think it's interesting to see all different point of views from interviews, even hunters, conservationists, NGOs, governments, police officers. So I think it's very relevant for the project and for knowing about it in public perspective.
Actually, this project gives us the opportunity to use our experience in the area and our knowledge and data, and share it and use it at another level, to collaborate with stakeholders, with authorities, and to have a feedback from them. And I think this is important for us as researchers, because we can see somehow the results of our research work, and also practical side of species conservation and habitats conservation. Sometimes research could be sterile, but this project gives the opportunity to see not only theory and theoretical stuff, but also practical issues, and also the social and economical level and political level, all these things that we actually study. In this project, actually, we focus on sturgeons and aquatic birds. We use sturgeons as indicators, like mega fauna for the river. These are the largest fish, freshwater fish in the world. So we consider sturgeons, migratory sturgeons, as indicators for the river health, also for the pressure of human society and human activities. For the wetlands, we use the pelicans as indicators also the largest flying birds on Earth. And preserving a healthy wetland habitat, we can ensure the presence of these huge fish-eating birds.
I represent Semantic Web Company, and so far we have built the first version of the Nature First Knowledge Graph, where we have connected habitats, species, land covers, and so on. So now you can answer like questions which are more complex, like in which habitats like the declining or protected species live in. And this was not possible when having disconnected or data silos. So this opens us for the new possibilities and for all the use cases we have in Nature First by exploiting the knowledge graph.
We're building a structure basically for the communication, so communication plan, data management plan. Of course, we have a website, we have our socials, and we have started to gain some content and write some blogs and posts. I think there we are. We're really keen on having more content on the project, and I think it's finally beginning to start now.
They've really sort of set the scene of what we're trying to achieve, and the General Assembly has really kind of brought it all together for the first time. So we knew what we were trying to achieve, of course, and we knew the different players in the game, so who was doing what. But until this week at the General Assembly, we didn't like truly understand what our aims in detail, and now we know.
We actually had a General Assembly, which we have twice a year, where we come together and we discuss the progress, and we do also the formalities, of course, about the reporting. But most, of course, is about getting to know each other better at a deeper level and develop propositions together of what are we building, how are we building it, and how is it being used in the field, and also using lessons in the field that we learn from the field, how to incorporate these back into what we are developing.
First General Assembly, we all came to South Africa, or at least most of the partners could come to Africa.
And we are seeing all the nature around us and working with it very closely. We are getting to know each other much better.
South Africa is a really interesting country. We have a great biodiversity of different animals and plants, marine and terrestrial. And we have a big experience with illegal wildlife activities, and wildlife crime and illegal trade.
And we have built here a Wildlife Forensic Academy with the aim to train rangers, prosecutors, police officers, veterinarians, because they are all part of the criminal justice chain, and we are lacking forensics. And actually we have the same problem in Europe. So it was an idea of us to bring our consortium partners here to experience what we're doing and see what effect a wildlife forensic laboratory can add to their skills.
Andrew, how's Team Rhino doing?
Team Rhino is doing excellent work, really. You know, they are excellent experts. One of the experts put out her clothing, so she walks with loose hair. She means she contaminates the whole crime scene with her hair. You won't believe it.
So she's not going to get a pass?
No.
How's Team Line doing?
Team Line's doing well. They're busy with their search pattern. You can see they haven't contaminated anything like the other teams. The shoe prints and the weather circumstances has really gone drastic. All of a sudden, very quickly. But luckily,
what happened?
They jumped on it.
What happened? What went drastic?
Wind and the shoe prints that they were supposed
to
document. But lucky for them, the suspects actually went around the scene and they found a much better shoe print right here by the Ryan's foot, which is actually better for evidential value. So I'm actually quite proud of them because they came closer to the line and not further away. The only thing that I'm a little bit worried about is some contamination with number 35 right on top of the lion.
But surely if your marker is not got any DNA on it, then is it contamination if you cleaned your marker?
But it isn't really, but it's
not good practice because it increases your chances of contamination.
Exactly, and that's going to cause...
So what should they have done in that scenario?
Place the number 35 right next to the lion or not next to its head or something. So you still indicate the lion as number 35, but then when the vet is busy doing the autopsy, let him place the markers, stickers, whatever he needs.
So Claire, how's Team Giraffe doing?
They're doing excellently, actually. So not only have they made a path, and they've done Boris has done the overview photos of already the scene, and he's now taken more overview photos with key evidence in place with numbers. They've decided which is evidence that could be easily lost, and they're covering that up now.
Right.
Mostly footwear impressions. And then they're about to, which is what Linda, team leader, was just saying, that they're about to start a more systematic search to cover any other evidence.
Yeah, unfortunately not everyone could be present here in South Africa where we have the General Assembly due to many reasons. For example, the people in Ukraine, of course, they cannot travel. Then we set up an online link. So in all the sessions where we could discuss things and where we were kind of making decisions or trying to prepare new plans, they were online present.
And I was impressed by that, what I have seen. Very bright, nice pictures of all of you, all the participants, and of course the wild animals like giraffes, rhinos, and so on and so on. And so it's a very pity that we are not able to go abroad and to take part in that.
And we got feedback from them that they really enjoyed it and felt connected, which was quite a difficult thing to do because you are discussing things around the table and then there's a screen with them also there. But one of our colleagues sometimes took the laptop and then walked along with us through crime scenes like the rhino or in this case a lion. In Europe, of course, it will be a bear. But that way they got a kind of feeling that they were there and that they could contribute significantly. And even now we have presentations of the propositions, the value propositions that we have. And also the people online have been working on their own value propositions and will feed that into these discussions. So it's easier if everyone would be on scene, but we managed to combine them and to kind of involve them and engage them in this process.
Thank you again for the opportunity and for all the facilities that you provided for make the online sessions available, possible. I was able to participate, to ask questions, to respond to different questions, and also most important, I was able to hear you all and be there in all these activities and online sessions.
And now this kind of General Assembly has really brought everything together that people have been doing, and it's really put both the technological perspective and the forensic perspective in light and combine them really nicely. So I think the first 6 months have gone well.
So we made a first analysis of what is needed and what are the gaps and what are the challenges in nature conservation for biodiversity monitoring, but also for tackling problems like poaching and trying to solve crimes that happen with bears and with wolves in southeastern Europe. So it's very exciting topics and very important teams. It's very nice to see how qualified the people are that we're working with and to see the ideas and the ideas now crystallizing in concrete plans. So it's an exciting journey.
Now, if you look at the project, there are two main subjects. That's remote sensing, the satellite data and digital twin. And then you have the forensic part. And we have many partners who have not a lot of skills in forensics. So to make a project to a success, you need to have knowledge about forensics and how we can combine the data that we gather from the satellite and how we connect these two worlds together. So it was necessary to give this examine about this is forensic, this is wildlife forensic, what can we do with it, and how does it strengthen our project.
Forensic science in wildlife has been really undervalued and underused as a skill to try and prosecute people or even catch people and then prosecute them, people that commit wildlife crime or illegal activities. And so it's a skill that hasn't been used. It's been much more used in the human sphere. So we are trying to increase the amount of skills and knowledge of forensic science in the wildlife crime field. And it plays a very valuable role, and in some ways more valuable on the human side, because often crimes that occur where there's wildlife, there aren't any other people, so there's no witnesses, there aren't necessarily cameras like you have in a city where there's lots of people, so there's less other sources of evidence that can be collected. So forensics is really important. Footprints, bullet casings, any kind of other evidence that's left behind is really important. Also, one of the difficulties is wildlife crime is not seen as important as a crime that involves a human. So if you have forensics, it gives more information that ends up in the court, and that you create a more powerful statement that ends up going to court, and people, and hopefully the judiciary will then be more motivated to prosecute and have a firm or a strong or a more severe prosecution. And forensics can play a role in that. If you give good evidence of the trauma that happened to an animal when it was killed, if you give good evidence of the surroundings and the environment maybe there were other animals that were also involved, in multiple animals, the more evidence you give makes a tighter case, but it also makes it more, hopefully makes the judiciary more sympathetic. And one of our big issues is wildlife cases often don't get the severity of a crime that really is justified to make it a deterrent and to make it less attractive for people to occur. So if you can use forensics to improve that, and it can make a difference in that way.
Very interesting part of the event was crime scene, how you collect data, how you instrument all this data in the field, and that was interesting because it's quite similar with some of our procedures, some of our protocols in the field. We do not investigate crimes, but we sample different species in order to collect DNA samples. Also, we investigate some of the sites and some of the species in quite a similar way in order to understand what happened in that place, and think that was very interesting. Also, I learned some more things there, and I think we can use some of these procedures, some of these protocols, and also I think some of the authorities may benefit, may have a real benefit of this experience.
So policy and also particularly the legislation that is in place can drive nature conservation and biodiversity. So the awareness of the illegal trade, for example, and how you can develop instruments in policy and legislation to stop that from happening. And at the same time, what we do in this project, in Nature First, can also help inform policy development and policy monitoring. So how well are we doing? So we have legislation in place, like Natura 2000, all sorts of environmental agreements as well. But how well are we doing towards the goals we have set ourselves? And that's also where the results from Nature First should help inform policy making and monitoring and evaluation a lot.
Forensics training that we take yesterday, maybe the biggest achieve of this assembly in Africa for now, at least what we see these days. Because it has a lot of application in our work, and also in the things that Wadu wants to achieve with poaching and this problem that we have in Bulgaria.
Yeah, forensic for sure, forensic science. It was interesting but also useful for our work. We actually in Bulgaria we don't do it anyway. Probably we can implement it in our work.
I was on this set day session about criminalistic approaches, and it was also almost new for me. And but it was very interesting because it's a very different area of work that we made. And because we work in this monitoring approaches, monitoring of large carnivores, and this approaches about criminalistic, how to take evidence about different poaching happening in the wood and something like that. It was something new, and I think it will be also useful for our lawyers, for lawyers of our team. We also have our colleague Sofia Shutyak. She is not attending in our project, but she was interested to go to the session because it's like her specialization.
What is common between Romania and South Africa? I think there are some similarities. We have poaching for sure, not just for sturgeon, but for other species too. And the same, it would be good for people to understand this work for investigation that should be done. And for sure, even in Romania, the prosecutors or the judges don't understand the real work of the people on the field trying to prove a poaching case or the significance of a poaching case.
I've learnt, I would say, the most from the field sites, really trying to understand their experiences in the field and the challenges that they face, and really getting the detail from the kinds of scenes, so from illegal activities and other human-wildlife interactions that they actually see. I can now understand how they can apply forensic science more effectively, ultimately. So it's been so useful hearing their stories, specifically about their crime types as well. So we were always having bear poaching and sturgeon poaching as two key activities to focus on, but now I'm starting to understand what they're currently doing in the field and what they want to achieve as well. So that has been really useful. I also think that I take home a lot of the information from their challenges with law enforcement as well. So that is now a responsibility of me to think how I can support the field sites on engaging law enforcement in the work that we're doing in Nature First, and not just for this part of the project, but of course from beyond as well, because ultimately we would love this product, this tool, to be able to be integrated into these types of investigations, because currently they don't have anything like this.
I think for me what was most valuable is chatting to people about their situation at home and how the environment is different, but also actually the challenges they face are really similar. Challenges with regards to trying to monitor biodiversity, trying to monitor crimes that occur, and then later down the line, issues that they have with judicial systems that don't necessarily prioritize wildlife crimes, or just really difficult to navigate. There's corruption, there's other issues. So I think learning about their environment was really interesting, and also seeing the similarities between their environment and our environment. And wildlife biodiversity preservation is a new, it's getting a lot more spotlights and being highlighted as a really important issue that we need to deal with, particularly at where we are on the planet. So seeing the similarities between us and Europe, I think, was for me the biggest takeaway.
Actually, forensics is applicable on all crime scenes, if it's on the North Pole, if it's in Europe or in Africa. And because Africa has the biggest demand of knowledge, we established the Wildlife Forensic Academy on this part of the world. We get invitations, or we invite universities and professionals from all over the world to come to our facility to see what we're doing and to understand that this has the potential to expand to other areas in the world.
So next steps from after the General Assembly are, for me, two main things. So firstly, starting to develop the training packages along with Andro from the Academy for the ultimate, the train-the-trainer courses that's going to happen in the future. So we're going to start on that early. We've got an idea now of sort of needs requirements, and we certainly know overall what is required for the individuals in the field. That's what we do. But now it's about making it bespoke, so making that training package fit for purpose for our field sites. So that's a major undertaking we're now going to do. And then for me, I'm also going to be taking the knowledge that we've gained from our impact metrics that we started to investigate at the General Assembly. So what actually we can measure to understand the impact our project is having, and now pulling them together so we can prioritise. So that's going to happen straight away after this General Assembly.
Well, I definitely had a greater consideration for the forensic aspect of this project. So essentially I'm working more on the technological side, developing digital twins, and the forensic side can often seem quite distant, and this General Assembly really brought the two together, and I've got some ideas of perhaps, you know, considering what outputs of digital twins might potentially influence any forensic studies. It might not, but it's a key consideration to have in place. And also, very crucially, it was an opportunity for us to meet the field partners in person and really have some good discussions on how these digital twins will be developed, how they will influence work at each of the sites, and more of an idea of what the end output is going to look like.
It was very amazing to see all of this infrastructure for wildlife forensic, all of these science regarding how can you gather evidence, traces, how you put this in a safe place, or the chain of custody, how do you need to give them to the proper authorities to create a strong case and try to help catch the poachers on all these wildlife crimes. So I think it's very interesting. I need to understand how can we apply all of this in our field site with the regional government from the nature conservation perspective and also from the wildfires protection, because in our region in Galicia and northwest Spain we have a lot of wildfires, so this is also a very relevant project because most of them are provoked by people and by arsonists.
Since I'm in Knowledge Graph, also basically what we are doing is connecting context to the data, and this will have different use cases and problems we have to solve in the nature first. For example, if we take as the first one is the let's say forensics. So once you take the evidence and you put it as a facts, and then you have to contextualize that, and then you can use knowledge graphs to do that, and then this can be helpful, for example, for investigators to get recommendation on you know, which things to look next, and also to help in their decision making. Same for the digital twin. For example, when we have the bear movement, like the prediction, and there also, you know, we can use knowledge graph to see, for example, what's the probability of the bear, given that the species that are relevant to the bear. So all these things, yes, we can exploit knowledge graph to help them.
Well, we invest also in very modern technologies, which is the enabler to make a real change in this world of conservation. And one of these technologies is the knowledge graph. And it sounds a bit technical, but if you look at Google or Amazon and you search for things, the search engines are actually facilitated by knowledge graphs. And these knowledge graphs are actually kind of spider webs which link many things in a meaningful way. So if you look for clothes, you will also find jeans. And if you look for shoes, maybe you also find socks. Because those things are semantically, in our language, we understand that these are related to each other. The same thing is happening actually when you look at an ecosystem. You have certain habitats, and then we know there are certain species that really like this habitat and other species that live in other habitats. Those relations are often pretty well documented in reports, but if you implement them in a knowledge graph, you can query the graph. And you can ask, for example, what species typically occur in this habitat. And this habitat is actually the classification of the European Union. But now if you use another classification system, like from the IUCN, how do these relate? And can I make crossovers? And then in this knowledge graph, we actually make these crossovers, we interlink these taxonomies and these ways of classifying systems, habitats, species, but also problems like poaching and other human activities which are legal or illegal. You can rank them and you can interrelate them, and then you can query them in a very sophisticated way, which actually means that at the moment many data scientists and researchers will tell you that they spend about 80% of their time on preparing the data for their research, and only then they've got 20% left to study what they really want to study. With our platform and the knowledge graph technology embedded in it, that 80% time for preparing your data is reduced to maybe 20%, and then you've got 80% of your time left for your real research questions. So those are massive gains. Also, if you look at how you can map habitats, for example, compared to the current systems in use, we think we can reduce that by at least 50% in time. And also not only in time, but also in cost, which means probably even more in cost, which means that it becomes more attainable to do it more often. Because now those types of surveys are conducted only once every 5 years, and if you are lucky, but often it's older. Sometimes we hear of surveys which were conducted like 15 years ago. But if you have a system which is that much cheaper, and if you repeat it, it's even cheaper than the first time. It's half the cost to redo the analysis, to redo the survey of which habitats are rare and how big are they, how healthy are they. It's again 50% of the cost for the first time, which was already 50% of the full survey in the traditional way. So it really becomes attainable for many more organizations, and the level of information you get is way more fine-grained, like 10 by 10 meter instead of 1 by 1 kilometer. So which is a lot of more information, and it enables you actually to become more proactive, because changes that you measure only once in every 10 years, you're probably too late. But if you measure the differences 4 times a year, in every season you do one assessment, because the cost affords you to do that, then you can see changes way more rapidly and take preventive actions if you think this trend is not going in the right direction.
Habitat mapping is something, for example, that government and researchers have done this on the past in a very manual way. And we can use knowledge graphs to speed the process, so not only researchers get like a very dynamic view of the habitat, land covers, points of interest, and all the species, but they can also use the platform to enrich that, and they can be part of this community.
So in the platform we allow for adding their subject, and they can control their own subject within the environment, and they can just add and build upon what's already there. So rather than starting from scratch every time again, you can already start with these base layers which are very detailed, and then you add your knowledge about the bats or about these bird species, and you've got full control. So you have access to the data through APIs and stuff, all technical, but it's if you know about R and Python, then you also know about APIs. Then you know that you can really retrieve the data and store the data in different ways and use it in algorithms and models or reportings or specific types of maps that actually fulfill the needs of your research. And giving you access to such a platform, and not only the platform but also the engineers, the biologists, the ecologists that are working also on this platform, they form a community. So you can ask questions that often within your faculty are difficult to answer, because it's rarely found that you have data scientists and GIS specialists, but also people who specialize in Docker containers and in automating things, because usually those things are pretty scarce. But if you now form this community and have access to it, then you will have help from these people, and we have actually data science sessions every week. So in these sessions you can address your problem, you can tell about your success, and you learn from all the other researchers that are doing the same thing on the same platform, but within their own domain. But there are so many crossovers between these researchers. They all struggle with information management, data security. They all need a number of base layers to start working on. So that type of work can all be automated or taken care of by others so that they can focus on their research and they get help with their research. And it's nice if you work on a team which is highly similar to another one. For example, you work on the tracking of elephants and I'm working on the tracking of bear, then you know it's a very different species. But there's so many things that you can learn from each other. Like, what does this pattern mean? Can I read his behavior from this pattern? Can I see how he is using the landscape in which seasons or for which purposes? And when is he becoming a threat? Can we already see that certain behavior is a kind of signal that he is probably going now out for this yard to eat the apples from this yard? And maybe if people are living very nearby, they might be frightened because the bear is quite big. And then if you've got little bambinos, you think, whoa, my little kids, they are not safe anymore in my own garden. So then you want to warn these people, look, we saw this pattern and we learned these patterns maybe from elephants, but we see that half of them or many of these same principles apply also to the bear, that we can then use these already to prevent incidents with bears by alerting people. And those things, those crossovers between domains with similar types of questions is very inspiring for many researchers, but also has very tangible results, very valuable results for people living in areas with dangerous animals, because they are the ones seeing them every now and then, and usually in times and situations that they don't really appreciate it. It's for them a fact that these dangerous animals are around. They are not tourists, they live there. So that is an important theme and becoming more and more important with if nature conservation is a success, which it in many places is, then the wild bear and all these other animals, they will explode, right? They will flourish. And if they flourish, then they, after a while, occupy the full habitat and they will try to get out. And they will expand their habitat. But outside these habitats, there's agricultural land and cities and villages. So you will see that there will be more occasions that wild animals and people kind of use the same space. And then you need measures and ways of working to prevent problems.
Combined with this, our field site in Galicia, this is a Natura 2000 site and it's not a national park, a natural park. So the management is not, it has not a lot of resources to do it, to do a lot of service. So we hope that with this Nature First project we can do better with less data and to try to improve all of the management of the site and to solve these different kind of problems like this unknown information regarding habitats, the status and the dynamics of this field site, and also to try to get more from less data from the species like wolves or brown bear, especially brown bear. Yeah.
We have managed to put together an amazing team. You don't always know beforehand, because some people you already know from other projects and some people are completely new.
After this General Assembly, I think that for me that really the things are more clear.
I think here we really clicked, it really fell into place what the roles are of the individual partners and how well we complement each other in the work that we're going to do. So I think we have an amazing team, and of course it also did help a lot that we have this amazing environment here in South Africa at the Wildlife Forensic Academy as a first meeting.
Very, very impressed about the proposition that we have created, because it's the first time that satellite data and forensics are used in one project. So possibly it could be a new science, because the data that we collect, is so much evidence that we can add to a crime scene. You have to understand, if there's a crime scene somewhere in a reserve and there's never a witness statement because it's in a rural area. And if we're lacking forensic evidence, we have always the data from the satellite to add to our crime scenes and solve the crime. Yeah.
We are in pioneering ground with digital twins. They've never really been used in this kind of biodiversity monitoring extent. My supervisor, who's also involved in this project, Kunde Koning, he's made the first digital twin that's basically modeling crane movement. And essentially, the digital twins that we're going to do in this project are pilots for how they could be used and how they could be expanded upon for future biodiversity monitoring and also threatened and vulnerable species monitoring in the future. So it's really pioneering, and it's a way to essentially make sense out of all this data that's being collected by conservation organizations and just condense it into a way that's understandable. And you can really get the maximum amount of information out of your data.
It was a vision that we had written down on paper, and the data collection and data providing services, of course, is already a very ambitious one, also the digital twin, but the actually combination with the wildlife forensics, that was a vision. But we had a slightest idea, but I think now, by being here, experience it, we might have a better idea how to combine those two, and I think that makes the project unique.
As far as you can see, we are doing our best to reach the results of projects we participate in, including Nature First, of course, and we do it despite the wartime conditions and the reality. And the reality is not easy, because we have the curfew, some restrictions for the field sites visits, we have power outages, lack of internet connectivity, so permanent air alarms and danger of missile attacks, etc. That's the conditions. But nevertheless, our location here in the western part of the country let us feel anyway a bit more calm compared to the colleagues, our colleagues in occupation or close to the front line in the eastern and southern parts of Ukraine. We know we will overcome the enemy soon, and will make our country stronger and more efficient.
After the event, we learned a lot of things here. And we also shared a lot of information about the work that we do and about the field sites. So after this event, it's really more practical to get things implemented at the field sites. People have experience now a little, and they can take their knowledge back to their homes and to their organizations and really start using it.
We see how all the partners are very integrated in the project and trying to solve these conservation problems regarding using all the tools and innovative perspective from this Nature First project.
We'll try to see what we can do with the data that we already collected and to see how to apply in the field what is needed for the data in the project. I'm enjoying working in this project, and I hope we will have a lot of good and nice results.
We will provide training regarding fluid instrument for our stakeholders. We will provide this training for nature conservation areas and also for forestry and hunting grounds. And we also will collect data, historical data and actual data of distribution real species of large carnivores in the Carpathian Mountains on the project area. We will focus on lynx, wolf and bear distribution on the project territory. And also we will focus on conflicts area where we have farm papyrus and where we have conflicts between peoples and large carnivore in Maramures area of the Ukrainian Carpathian. I think it will be like the main focus to the spring and summer this year. And I think this data will help us to developed some measures regarding species conservation and species distributions, and regarding species management, also management of their population. And it will also help us to resolve human-wildlife conflict in the region, to prepare some recommendations for authorities how to resolve this conflict in the area.
We plan to start the fieldwork probably in a week or two from now. So when we start to collect information, we will know more about the CLUI and the application and the whole platform. And probably we want to know when will be the second Africa visit.
We have to start to collect data in the field and to start to use the other tools that you have in the CLUI package for analyzing data. To start to collect also the already data collected that it is available for use it now in Bulgaria.
We will focus on testing CLUI application features in the field, and we'll collect field data that are relevant for the project. And we are researchers and biologists, and we will act like a link between biodiversity and the reality in the field, and the programmers. I mean, we will help the technical crew of the project to develop artificial intelligence and algorithms relevant for this topic. And we'll provide data in order to produce the digital twins for the target species.
I'm going to be working on the first digital twin, which is essentially tracking sturgeon migration up the Danube Delta, and also potentially providing then these risk zones of poaching, essentially of informing WWF Romania and also the DDNI of when these poaching incidents might be of high risk, when are the sturgeon going into these high risk zones. So work is going to start on that in earnest when I come back, and doing a field visit also to Romania in springtime. So we're just going to really just get going with the first of these digital twins.
So before and now we have been working a lot on the development, so data collection, data sets, data sources. How are we going to get that data, and how is it going to be fed into the platform and in the tools in the digital twin development. We want to test an iterative, really co-design process with the field partners during field site workshops that we'll be organizing starting at the end of this year. We have 4 field site workshops to be organized, and that's really going to be the focus of my work for the coming months, to make sure that not just logistically, operationally all is in place, but of course mostly also the program we're going to run. How do we get the right people in the chairs in the event location? We really want to get local communities, local stakeholders involved, and an important part of the policy workshop is also the policy lab. So that will be a part of the field site workshops, where we hope to also engage with policymakers to see how the tools and monitoring, the alerts can help them with their own management and reporting systems.
It was wonderful to meet the field sites. It was good to see that they see that the Wildlife Forensic Academy adds something to conservation. And we're just planning to see if we could step in a new project and build such an academy in Europe.
We had a very nice discussion, fruitful discussions, and we have a clear plan ahead. So I think it was very nice, especially because in South Africa, I think the bond was even higher.
I think this is a really valuable project, and what was amazing was seeing that how getting everyone together, and it's different to online, was just so much better, and we were, I think, very productive and very able to get each other on the same page. And because it's the beginning of the project, there's quite a lot of knocking things around and trying to put the pieces together and even create the pieces that you then got to put together. And I think having everyone here made that possible. It was very hard to do it online, and it was great to be a host, bring people to South Africa. I think Africa and South Africa is a unique country, and Europeans tend to look forward to coming here, and people that can really like the animals that they saw, and I think it was a great experience for them. And also I think the whole bringing together workshop as a team was motivating and encouraging for everyone, and I think that was really important.
Come join us. I mean, it is it's not just meant for the partners in the project, it is really meant for park managers, for rangers, for policymakers who are responsible for biodiversity conservation, for nature conservation throughout Europe and beyond. So it's an open invitation and a call to action, because if you join, it's also, what can you bring to the table? Do you have data sets that can help us make the tools and systems even better than we are hoping for today?
We try to work towards an open platform like Wikipedia, where everyone can contribute to the knowledge that is in Wikipedia. We try to create a similar kind of infrastructure where people can contribute meaningful knowledge to the knowledge graph, which is actually the relations between habitats and species and developments within these domains, interlinking it with citizen science. So if you are using Ops-Identify or iNaturalist and you record certain species, it can be embedded in this graph, in this web open space where people can access it and can develop their own new applications in it, but mostly also for governments and policymakers and researchers to contribute to it, but also use it as a resource for their research. So if we are successful, then we are piloting it now in 5 Natura 2000 sites, and with the help of the EU we try to then expand it to the 1,000 to 2,000 Natura sites which are actually there in Europe, and of course beyond that. So yes, if we get this off the ground, it definitely will, it has the potential to become a real game changer.